Hey, everybody. My name is John Mayer, and I'm the Executive Director of CALI, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. With me today is Elmer Masters, Director of Internet Tech at CALI, and he's going to talk to us about QuizWright and a little bit about formative assessment. Um, as you know, this is the last of our sort of formal sessions for this semester. Next week, we're going to do CALI, Ask CALI Anything, ACA, or sort of like the Reddit AMA or office hours or tech talk. So come back at the same time and we'll just have a Zoom meeting. So you'll have to have your camera on. Well, you don't have to have your camera on, but we'll have the opportunity for you to have your camera on. And you'll be able to talk to us about any of our materials, lessons, ebooks, even some new things that we're sort of noodling around with. I see Allie Robbins. Hi, Allie. Thank you for that interesting project you've been working on. It's secret right now, but maybe next week we'll give you a little reveal. All right, without much ado, Elmer, take it away.
Thanks, John. All right, good afternoon, folks, and it's a warm, sunny afternoon here in south of Atlanta, and I'd much rather be outside. Um, but I'm gonna get through this because it's like it feels like spring. So, but we'll get through this. We're gonna talk a little bit about QuizWright. A couple of housekeeping things. We've opened chat because I'm going to ask some questions, and that's a good place for people to put stuff. And it's a small enough group, I think we'll be able to keep an eye on it. If you do have questions specifically, use the Q&A section for those because they're easier to manage that way. Because the chat stuff will just keep scrolling, and sometimes we can miss everything. So we want to be able to keep an eye on that. So basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about some sort of just formative assessment stuff generally for about like 2 minutes while you answer a couple of questions in a poll, and then we'll get right into QuizWright. And the QuizWright thing is going to be primarily a demo. So as I'm working through it, again, if you do have questions, just put them in the Q&A space. So I want to get started with a little poll, which we're going to open up this poll right about now. And the poll is on using formative assessment. I'm going to leave this open for a little bit while I chat here. It's kind of out of order because today I learned, because it's always good to learn new things every day, that when you do polls with the polling feature of Zoom, you can't rearrange them when you're done. So really question one is sort of should be question three, but you can kind of work through them. There are three questions there. Asking you about, are you using formative assessment as part of your course this semester? Are you using formative assessment for the first time? And then do you tell your students about the formative assessment component in your syllabus? So with formative assessment, it's a thing now in law school, right? When I was in law school, you wrote that one exam at the end of the semester, and you just hoped you were keeping up along the way. Sometimes you went and talked to your professor, while things were going on to try and get some feedback. One of the things that the CALI lessons, of course, cover is that they're not only self-paced learning with immediate feedback. So, because students like feedback, they like to know where they stand with stuff. So, formative assessment is a great way to, sort of use a low stakes environment to just determine whether or not your students are where you want them to be. And a little bit of feedback then helps them decide if maybe they need to read more closely, do they need to pay attention in Zoom class, or as things are going on. As we've been working through things here at CALI, we've developed QuizWright as a formative assessment tool, and it's actually been out for a number of years now, like 3 or 4 or something like that. So it's been around for a little while, and folks have used it, to write little quizzes for their classes and build personal question banks and that sort of stuff. And we're working on improving that all the time. But when we think about formative assessment here at CALI, we like to go back to thinking about learning objectives for each class. So for example, you could do a QuizWright quiz, a little formative assessment, to find out, if your students have, met, if they've learned what you wanted them to learn in a given lecture or a given, course session, right? So, and you can think of learning objectives for a course as, what should students be able to explain, discuss, apply, define at the end of a class session, right? So, and then you can imagine writing some little multiple choice or true and false questions for that. And then that can become a QuizWright quiz. So I'm gonna stop the poll because it's been running for 3 minutes. And let's see what we have. So let's see, I'm going to click share results. Everybody should be able to see it. And then we'll save that. We'll have the results. We'll put them on the YouTube page with the video and stuff when we're done. So for the are you using formative assessment as part of your course this semester? I put that first question in there because I knew there were probably a bunch of people who aren't teaching this semester. But we also have folks who are sort of doing it. We have 3 people that are using formative assessment weekly throughout the semester. So, folks are doing it. We have nobody that said no, I'm not using it, and that's good. I'm glad to see that because I think it really helps. And then are using formative assessment for the first time this semester, and no, which that's great. That's great. That's a little surprising. I thought there would be some people who would say, yes, this is the first time using formative assessment. So, but good. And then do you have to know about it in the syllabus? Most people, yes, and then somebody said no, and I won't ask you to identify yourself, but no, so that's good. I mean, I just wanted to sort of get an idea of where folks are at with formative assessment. So you note that I didn't ask you what you're using for formative assessment, but I will now. And if you want to just make a note in the chat, this is why I open chat. If you're using let me know what you're using for formative assessment. Are you using QuizWright? Are you using the quiz tools that come in whatever your LMS is, right? So the quizzes and tools or Canvas. Are you using, one of the commercial things? Are you handing out, little pieces of paper and having people check boxes? That's okay too. Whatever you're using, if you want to share that in the chat box, that'd be cool. And what I'm going to do now is we'll get into QuizWright. I'm going to share my screen, make sure I pick the right browser, and we'll hit share. All righty. So you should be looking at the CALI website right about now. Hey, here's a teaser for next week. We might be showing you next week perhaps some screenshots of the refresh of the CALI website that's coming up. We're just making some little tweaks and menus and stuff to make it more accessible. So that might be next week. So to get to QuizWright, it's really easy. You log into CALI, and then under the CALI dashboard, there's an entry for QuizWright. So we're just going to click on that, and that opens QuizWright right up. So usually when I do these demos, I like jump right into like making questions and stuff and getting everything going. But I thought I'd take a quick sort of mini tour through some other parts of the interface this time. One of the things that people kind of ignore when they look at QuizWright and also at the web version of CALI Author, there's a profile link at the top, a profile button. If we open that up, that allows you to enter in all of your information. And why, you may ask, would you want to do this? Well, the reason why you want to do this is because this then gets incorporated in the opening screens of the quizzes. So it gives students some contact information, make sure you've got your title and the school and stuff on there, and and then it shows up. But this has to be filled in by hand. We don't pull this data from like from the CALI website or anything like that. So and then that lets you set that up, and then if when you get done changing, you can click the update button and it tells you it's updated. You're all set. Another thing that that we don't look at too often is the question bank. So we've been moving questions from CALI lessons into a question bank that appears in QuizWright. So there are lots of questions in here. One thing that you will find is the search mechanism's not too keen, so you sort of have to do the old control. Let's see, what is it? It's control. Was it control? Nope, that's not it. There, Control F. That's it in Windows. I always forget sometimes to open up the search box, and then you can look for. Let's see if I can find anything. So, contract formation. Nope, that's not going to work. Contract terms. There we go. Not terms. Contract terms. So that turns up a question. So we're working on a search facility for this, by the way, so it's easy to use. But we're adding questions on a kind of a regular basis as we go through the lessons and pluck them out. And when you find one that you want to use, you can click on the title, and it'll actually open it all up for you so that you can see what's going on. And it tells you what lesson it came from, and then this is the actual question itself and the results or the answers. This is a multiple choice question, including feedback that turns up when a student uses it. So if you look at something like this and you decide you want to use it, you can click the little copy button here, and that puts a nice little check mark in, and then you're good to go. That adds it to your personal question bank. And if we go back up to the top, and we take a look at the question bank, we'll try that again. Well, that's odd. Let's see. Oh, sorry. I wanted to look at my questions, not question bank. Can we do another take? No. Okay, so my questions is the list of questions that you've created or added, and so you can see that contract question is here. You can also see any other questions that you've already added, and you can edit them right here on the page. If you click on the little edit icon, it actually opens it up, and you can actually edit the question right here. So that if you want to, let's see, I think if I click that, that'll close again. No, it's not supposed to close. So let's say I'm going through and I want to add the topic area to copyright for this particular question. So I can do that, and I can do update. And then that'll let me have and so you can add the question like flat out from there. And then you can also look at your list of quizzes from the left-hand menu also, so that if once you start making quizzes, so I've already got one kind of queued up. We'll be taking a look at that in a little bit. But this is the list of quizzes, and you can even get the details of the quiz, and then go back and edit it and that sort of stuff too from here. So so there's all that. So if we get to where people mostly start is they just want to jump in and do start doing questions. So that's basically with most of the most of our explanations. That's what we want to do. We say we're going to we're going to just get you right into question making. So let's do a quick question here. I'm just going to do a true false. Now you can start typing right in the box. Obviously, it's like a regular editor. So if you've got your questions ready, you can just type them in. And then, but on the other hand, if you've got them prepared someplace else, you can do a copy and paste. So I've got some stuff sitting. I've got some stuff sitting in a text editor. You can copy and paste from Word. We kind of prefer that you don't, just because sometimes Word adds strange things that might cause trouble. You can use on Windows, you can use Notepad, for example, as a nice text editor, or Notepad++, which is an open source editor. And you can just type your questions in plain text. When you're adding questions, you can do some basic things like, bold, underlines, that sort of stuff. You can have lists. You can't include links out. And the reason why the reason why you can't add, why we're not letting you link out to other things, is because the nature of what this is supposed to be, right? Which is, a short, maybe 5-minute, 2 or 3 or 4 question quiz that you just want your students to, look at the question, answer, and just move through the quiz. Not stop and go and read a case and come back and answer some questions. That's kind of not what this is really built for. And if you want to do something more complicated than just straight like true, false, multiple choice questions with a limited amount of feedback like we do in QuizWright, then have I got a used car for you? Now we've got CALI Author on the web now. So that allows for the full set of features of CALI lessons to be used. So you can build more complicated things using CALI Author that allow for like feedback for every choice, and you can embed all kinds of media, and you can link out to other things, and you can just do a whole bunch of stuff. You can do branching and all that sort of stuff. But then that becomes a full-blown CALI lesson, as opposed to just a short, kind of quiz. So you type your question in here, and then this is a true false. So we're going to decide in this particular case, the answer is going to be false. And then, and I do have some feedback. Let's see here, make sure I get all the feedback I want to use. Let's see. So with feedback, I can put that in. Here, and it probably helps at least a little if I actually copy everything, right? Hang on. Sometimes I've got 2 monitors running, but sometimes I still run out of screen space. Just bear with me 1 second here. Sorry about that. I'll try again. Okay. So just gonna paste that in at the end. Okay. So it's an actual complete sentence. Then in this case, we'll click another. Now, another thing about QuizWright, it doesn't auto-save. So you really need to at this point, you need to click on a button. So you need to either add another question or prepare the quiz. If you click on anything else, you run the risk of stuff disappearing because it's not auto-saving. But as soon as you click the button to add another question, then it saves that question. And then you can just keep going and just keep adding questions until you're ready to go. And those will turn up on the My Questions list. So there's the one that I just added, right? So once you've got questions in your question bank, and in your personal space, and you want to decide you want to do some quizzes, then we can add a quiz. So we're going to click on the Add a Quiz button. So at this point, we're looking at the questions. So we have a couple of options with the questions. So they show up filtered. We see questions that haven't been assigned to a quiz yet. That's the default. And typically, that might be new questions or, well, just stuff you haven't assigned yet. So we'll click on, and then we're going to click on all. That'll show us everything. And you'll notice that we've got these two numbers over here. This tells us that these two questions have already been used, but that's okay. You can use questions more than once, so that's fine. But sticking with the idea of like what we might want to do in terms of like what all of this means. So let's say the course was about, today's lecture was about public domain stuff, right? So we want to grab a quick quiz to see if students picked up on what we were talking about with public domain and copyright. So we're going to pick a couple of questions. I've got one that's all about public domain, or at least partly about public domain, and we're also going to ask them about reusing content for educational purposes. And then we're going to add those to a new quiz. So we then we give it a title, right? So we'll call it copyright, public domain. We can add a subject area like copyright. We have to give it a brief description. So we'll say, let's see, what have you learned about public domain? We can change the estimated time. This should be 2 minutes. And then you can add more pages. So you can have a page at the beginning that might give them instructions. Like, for example, you have 5 minutes to complete this. And then a conclusion page, where you can tell them, wait for the signal until, we start something else or something like that. So you can have those pages on there. We're gonna skip those for right now. We're gonna hit the Save Quiz button. So this then gives me the details and it shows me the questions. So at this point, I can edit things, or I can save this for later. Right now, we're going to hit the Publish button. So I'm ready to give the quiz? Sure. So we'll hit the Publish button. And then that's going to hand us over to directly to the CALI website. So this has now been published on the CALI website. So anybody that has the URL at the top here can actually see the quiz and actually launch it at this point. Now there's no way inside of QuizWright. So there's a couple things here. Now you notice that this updated the details and the fact that it's been published and stuff. So there's a couple things about QuizWright and publishing quizzes. Once you publish a quiz, you can't change it. So unlike CALI Author that lets you edit lessons, there's no way to edit a quiz once the quiz has been published to CALI. So if you discover a typo in a question, you need to change the question, redo the quiz, and publish it again. You can actually delete things from the CALI website. If you click on the Edit tab and go to something like Publishing Options, for example, you could unpublish it, which means nobody can see it except you. You can also delete it here. It won't delete it in QuizWright, but it'll stop students from ever finding it at all. So it'll just be gone, but it'll still exist inside of QuizWright though. Let's see, there was something else. Let's see, can't edit. No, I think that was it. So once we're on the CALI website with it, there's a couple of things here. We can give students the URL directly to this lesson, or to this quiz rather, and have them run it from here. We can also add the quiz to lesson link. Okay, so for example, if we wanted to do that, we could open lesson link and we could go and take a look at, let's see where we're at. Well, let's add it to, so we're going to add it to the set from a couple of weeks ago. So what we do is we go here and we look for, it's in my CALI library. So I'm going to start typing library. So my CALI library resources. And then we see there's the public domain quiz, and another one that I had done, registration reuse, is also there. We'll just select this one, and then we'll click save. So at this point, it's now been added to lesson links. So either way, you'll be able to see the scores. The difference is that if you use it with lesson link, that gives you the option of perhaps using the quiz across multiple sections or saving it for like next year or something like that. And when you run it and you look at the scores, if you use lesson link, you only see stuff for the current semester, as opposed to you'll always be able to go back and look at everything that everybody did on it. So at this point, we're going to run. We're going to cross our fingers now. We'll run the lesson link URL. So this is what happens. It looks pretty much like a lesson. For folks who were on the lesson link webinar a couple of weeks ago, you'll notice we've made some changes to the viewer just this week to add more information about lesson link to the header, so that students aren't confused about whether or not they're running a lesson link setup or not. So I can click on about this lesson. Because it's lesson link, we actually tell folks that, and we remind them that the scores are visible to the professor in the class. And then let's see. And this is the teacher view. So the faculty view for it, so the students won't see stuff like participants and stuff. And then we can flip through the questions. Let's see, I'm going to go with false, and then I get some feedback, and I can do continue, and then I can do true here, and also continue. And then I can complete the lesson and see my certificate and finalize my score and all that fun stuff. And then that should take us back to ta-da. Okay, so so that's pretty much how the whole lesson, kind of how the whole thing runs from beginning to end. So if you want to track your lessons and the quizzes that you've created, there's a link in the CALI dashboard called My CALI Library. And if you follow that, that'll show you your QuizWright quizzes, which are there. And then that gives you direct access to things like grades and stuff right from here. And you can also see self-published lessons, which are things created with CALI Author. Those are here also. So, and the same sort of thing. And then that way, you've always got access to those, to that material as you're working through stuff. So, and that kind of hits all the high spots that I wanted to get to, because I know we're at half past the hour. And so let's take a look at questions. So let's see. So yeah, I'm going to answer some questions. So let's see. The first question I'm seeing here is there a feature grid that shows what CALI QuizWright can do that Google Forms cannot, and the reverse? And the answer to that question is no. Haven't looked at Google Forms in terms of I know that you can use it to build quizzes and things. We haven't compared the two. We built and designed QuizWright several years ago with building on our experience from CALI Author and our ability to just do let faculty create simple formative assessments that they could easily administer and then run inside. It uses the same viewer as lessons, so the students already have an account and all that sort of stuff. So we haven't compared it to Google Forms. And then also I have a question about sharing quizzes. So we're working on the ability for you to share questions. We probably won't do sharing quizzes because we think of these quizzes as formative assessments as sort of ephemera in the sense that the tool's designed to allow you to put quizzes together, use them kind of once or once a semester, something like that, based on the questions. And we don't really think of them as sort of a permanent thing. So we're looking at the ability for you to share questions in your bank, in your question bank. So if I wanted to share those copyright questions that I created, we're working on a way for you to do that. But it would still be up to another faculty member to make a copy of those questions and then create their own quiz. All righty. There's another question that was already answered, which I'm going to just kind of jump in and answer again anyway. So, what's the ideal number of questions recommended for QuizWright? And again, we like to think of it as like 2 or 3. It can vary. It's sort of, I know that there are folks out there who are building quizzes with like 10 questions and stuff. But generally, the idea is that it just takes a few minutes for the student to do, and you want to focus on things that they should have learned from an assignment. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? If not, I'm going to dive into something brand new, which I'll tell you about because I don't have anything to show. But so if we don't have any other questions, so one of the things that we're working on is a project that lets us, because one of the questions that we get all the time is, what's the difference between a QuizWright and creating a quiz and CALI author and creating a lesson? And the difference is sort of the focus, right? QuizWright is a formative assessment tool that lets you build these little quizzes. CALI author is about building self-paced learning spaces with immediate feedback. I mean, the idea behind CALI author and CALI lessons is to actually teach people about the law, right? So one of the things that we're working on right now is actually creating QuizWright quizzes for CALI lessons. So the idea is that you do a lesson, and then you're offered a short quiz at the end that checks to make sure that you learned what you were supposed to learn in the lesson, right? So because the way that the lessons are built, you can work through a lesson, but there's not necessarily anything in the lesson that's going to specifically go back and check to make sure that you got what you were supposed to get out of it, right? So as the sort of prelude to that, we've been adding learning outcomes to CALI lessons. So we've got let's see, did that? Oh, it did go. Hang on. So for example, I'm going to pick one at random, and I hope this one's already been put together, but. Okay, so for every lesson, we now have learning outcomes, right? And this covers a bunch of topics: property contracts. You can find them. There's a list on the website of stuff that has learning outcomes. So the idea is this tells people what, when they take a lesson, these are the things that they should learn, right? So the student will be able to, when they finish the lesson, define adverse possession. Explain the historical origins of adverse possession. And as you work through the lesson, all of these things are explained to you, and there are questions to answer that help you learn the subjects. And then, and you're sort of graded as you go along, but there's no sort of final exam, right? I mean, there's nothing when you get to the end of a lesson, there isn't, we're not checking to make sure you actually know what adverse possession is, right? So so the idea is that we'll create a quiz where we'll have we'll have a number of questions around each one of these learning outcomes, and then the students will be able to opt to take a quiz. And when they do that, they'll get a set of the questions, and depending on how many questions we have and a bunch of other stuff, the quizzes could be auto-generated or they could be sort of pre-packaged, and the students will be able to check to make sure that they understand what the lesson is. And we're kind of excited about that, and some of it may be popping up by next fall, because it takes a long time to sort of do this on scale for us, because we've got to have people write questions and organize all the stuff, and But if you're assigning CALI lessons right now, right? So if you're actually assigning CALI lessons at this moment in your class using lesson link or just pointing people at them, whatever you're doing, if you're assigning CALI lessons, you could use the learning outcomes and the lesson to create a short quiz. So you could assign a lesson, run this lesson before the next class, and at the beginning of the meeting, run a short quiz that checks to make sure that students have picked up on these learning outcomes that are assigned with the lesson. And then based on the results of that formative assessment, you can make some decisions sort of on the fly about, are we ready to move on to the rule against perpetuities, or do we need to spend some more time on adverse possession, or how those things work. And if you dive deep enough into the analytics that we provide, of course, you can actually narrow it down to maybe students who might be having some issues with things, but that's sort of a deeper dive. So that's where we're trying to go. Make everything work together. Synergy. Yes. Anyway. Okay. So that's a little bit sort of up and coming stuff. Does anybody have any other questions? Let me just pop open not that window. This window. This way. Da, 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 da. Going once, going twice. Where is? Oh, John, are we seeing anything else? Because I've lost track of the chat window. That's why I'm looking a little confused.
Nope, nothing there.
Nothing there. All righty. If nobody has any, if nobody's got any more questions, then I think everybody needs to take the rest of the Friday afternoon off. It's been a long week. Yeah. So, and next week, come on back for Ask CALI Anything, and we mean anything. So our marketing guy, Scott, is really concerned that you're going to pop in and start asking us questions about auto mechanics, or, what's the best law school to go to. So but we'll certainly, the Zoom law school. Yeah, nope, wrong side.
Zoom is the best law
Zoom law school. But yeah, swing by next week, and we'll answer questions about CALI, because I know you got them. So, and we, and who knows, there'll be new stuff. There's always new stuff. I'll just fire things up. All right. So if there's nothing else, I am going to. Oh, there's chat. Yay. Okay. I'm going to call an end to this, which I can do right now. I'm going to say bye, everybody. And this video will turn up on YouTube by the beginning of next week. Have a good weekend.